Welcome back to the show. Today we have Daniel from Pebblebee. Daniel, I'm excited to have you back on the show and learn more about what you've been up to over the last few months since we last chatted.
Yeah, hey, thank you so much for having me on the show.
So, walk us through maybe your journey up until Pebblebee, and then I really want to dive into that.
Yeah, absolutely. The journey has been definitely lots of ups and downs. It's been a roller coaster to say the least. It's been about almost 11 years now. I guess let me start off with what is Pebble Bee. It's at the forefront of essentially tracking 3.0. We've gone through all the different stages. With 1.0 back in 2012. And we're creating a globally connected, a global tracking ecosystem essentially for all, no matter which platform you're using, whether it's iOS or Android or even enterprise on a dashboard. This is a very big industry. It's a $4 billion industry for both consumers and businesses. And as I mentioned, we started it in 2012 with a whole bunch of experience in this category. It's over a decade in in this category. And really, I come from a background of engineering military asset tracking systems as well. And it's always been the quest to create this connected global tracking ecosystem for all, whether it's, again, any platform that you're using, essentially to effectively and efficiently track your belongings. So we've started this journey. The origin was founded again back in 2012, but really the idea came about in around 2011, where Nick and I came together and realized that we were late to work because I couldn't find my keys, and he had a similar situation where he couldn't find the remote control because his kid would throw it in the garbage because he always told him TVs are bad for you. You know, you need to do your homework instead. So we kind of put our minds together and really created this universal tracking platform system. I worked on the hardware, he worked on the software, and this tracking system essentially seamlessly worked across all platforms. In 2012 is when we had our first prototypes. In 2013, we brought it to market, and it was successful from the first early days. And our goal was always to address the limitations of digital tracking solutions that were available, and even today, by offering a product that works natively with both ecosystems and platforms.
No, I think that's actually really cool because let's be honest, I think nowadays in even one household, there's usually some Android devices, some iOS devices, and just having obviously like having something that works with both platforms is actually really cool, right? And I think there's so many uses for the devices that you guys are building. The cool thing about it is you have different form factors for different applications, and obviously the cool thing about that is obviously I can use them in different scenarios. Do you maybe want to cover some of the form factors that you have, and then some of the
Mhm.
other cool integrations that you've done with some large companies?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll touch on a couple of points that you mentioned here. First of all, is rechargeability is something that we've always been doing since 2015. It's eco-friendly. It's better for the environment. It's better for the user. It's a lot more efficient to just be able to plug and charge and have a life of a year on your tracker, as opposed to purchasing a battery, opening the device, replacing the battery, and then throwing that battery in landfill. You know, that adds to a quarter million pounds of lithium per year. So
Wow.
really, that's kind of been always our motivation, is really develop and create technology that's good for the planet, good for people, good for user experience. And really, when it comes to the cross-platform compatibility, or let's call it a unified platform capability, that really helps in many ways. So I think first of all, it's good to note that engineering a product like this is very difficult. It's extremely difficult to fit that infrastructure inside of a very limited memory space by integrating both Pebblebee, Apple, Find My, and in the future, Google Find My device in a single SKU. So that what that does is it offers users unparalleled choice. So when you're purchasing it from a retail store, you don't have to pick the wrong one, because people don't typically pay too much attention to that, right? They pick the product, they think
Yeah.
it works, they go home and it doesn't work, right? So really, you want to have the best user experience from start to finish, and that starts from the manufacturability. When we're manufacturing, there's not much of an inventory issue. It's the same
Right.
SKU, same software build, image, etc. And then it goes all the way through. The retailers don't want to have two different SKUs per form factor, let's say. And so it really
Right.
offers unparalleled choice for the user, but also for the retailer. There's definitely operational efficiency there in terms of drastically reducing overhead and inventory challenges, like I mentioned earlier, and it also eliminates the need for multiple versions of the product, catering to multiple different types of platforms. So I think that is very important from a strategic point as well as from a business standpoint. I think it really helps, but it's also ultimately the best user experience. Um, how many people have two different platforms at home? I don't think it's as relevant because
Okay.
ultimately what's most relevant is when you purchase the product, you want to assign it to your own platform, whether you're Android or iOS, and
Sure.
that's it. How often do people switch between iOS and Android? Not that often, but if they do, it's also something we currently do. It's you just factory reset device or you delete it from one platform, then it's available on the other. So yeah.
That's cool. Very cool. So, do you maybe want to talk and give some examples of a couple form factors? Like I actually have the
Yeah.
wallet one here and the
Hmm.
keychain one. There's a ring that goes on it, but
Right.
it's actually on my keychain. I just
Hmm.
took it off before this. So, I'm actually using these
Right.
devices. I've been finding them really
Hmm.
useful.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you on that. That it is very useful to have different form factors because you don't want to have this device particularly in your wallet, right? So I have my
Totally.
wallet here, and this is a thin, very thin form factor that is rechargeable, loud, very good range, up to 500 feet, and it just slides into your wallet, and I keep it in my wallet, at all times, and it's just having that extra peace of mind, rather than also having this device in here. It's clunky, right? It's clunky.
Yeah.
Then it goes all the way to the bottom. You can't pull it out now, or you're gonna have to buy a specific attachment that works with your specific wallet. So having a card form factor is very useful. And then we also have the tag that we just released recently.
Cool.
That will be available on our website shortly. It is available right now for pre-order for Android only for Find My Device as a
Okay.
preliminary. We will have the switchable SKU early next year. And for the tag, that is a great product for attaching, for example, to a collar or a
Right.
leash or a remote control. I have it on my remote controls. Or you could attach it to any, it's basically, it comes with a double-sided tape, so you can adhere it to anything you want. That is a small form factor. And this isn't really ideal for a wallet because also, again, you put it in there and it goes all the way to the bottom and then you have to push it out and it gets stuck. So really,
Yeah.
it's in small cases, in small, let's say, tight little situations where you want to track your item. This will work. But it does only last up to 8 months, as opposed to the card will last up to 18 months, and the clip will last up to 12 months on a single charge. Of course, you can charge it as many times as you want, but you know, yeah.
Very cool. So I want to talk a little bit more about some of the integrations that you've actually put your technology in and worked with some companies to actually do that. Because I think,
Mhm.
not saying that what you just covered isn't cool, but I think some of the real innovation is creating even more form factors and actually putting it into products that we
Mhm.
use every day, or maybe not every day, but all the time.
Mhm. Yeah, and that also goes into again having the ability to have a switchable SKU so you can pick your own
Right.
platform. Imagine having a ski that's only Android compatible, right? Or a
Yeah,
ski
that
that's
sucks.
only iOS compatible. It just doesn't work. You're gonna have an inventory nightmare. You're gonna have issues with customer support, etc. So it's two things. It's not just embedded, but it's also enterprise. So we do work with enterprise platforms. We have a dashboard as well that also caters to enterprise solutions that are not just needing 10 units, but thousands of units. So that's very
Right.
important to keep in mind. But also on the embedded side, we take our technology and our know-how, and then we cater it towards that particular scenario or category, whether it's skiing, golfing, whether it's backpacks, or a bike, for instance. So we've developed that technology, which is difficult in regards to the hardware piece, because there's also not just the technology from a hardware perspective. It's the operations and the manufacturability. You could always make
Sure.
technology, but how manufacturable is it and scalable is it? That's a whole different question. When you're building this technology into a ski, how do you recharge the product? How do you make it so that it can withstand the very, very high temperatures of the curing process of making the ski, right? How do you
Right.
make it work so that when it's in very cold conditions, so it doesn't
Yeah.
deplete the battery so fast that you can't even use your product? And there is also the certification part of that. When you have to certify it with these big giants, like uh, Apple and Google, there's a process. It's not trivial. It's actually very, very difficult to go through that process. And we have to always keep in mind safety as the utmost important aspect of this technology, because we ultimately want to add value, and people that are trustworthy, people that are going to use this in a good way, in a good manner. But there are these folks that use it in a unprofessional, unsafe manner, and we want to always make sure that we can detect rogue devices, as well as
Right.
avoid any unwanted tracking. So that's something that we're continuously working on, and it also adds complexity when you're building and embedding these products into other products. So just to give you a few examples, one example is working with Bodie Miller's ski company. It's called Peak Ski Company, and then
Sure.
also Henry Griffith's golf clubs we've partnered with. We're actively working with them to develop and provide this new technology to the market sometime early next year.
Very cool. So, how does some of these integrations work on the golf club side? Like, do they come in my clubs and then I just activate it, or do I have to put it in myself, or walk us through that?
Yeah, they have different form factors. We can go through different options.
Okay.
We're still in the middle of identifying how, and I don't want to give too much, obviously,
Sure.
but just a high level. As a consumer, we don't want to inundate you with technology and how it works and all the intricate parts of it. You get your golf club, it works, it's easily rechargeable through a port,
Yeah.
and it also gives you the biggest value, which is a left behind alert. Left behind alerts are important for me, at least when I'm golfing and I leave
Lots of
my
people.
my wedge or my high numbered irons behind, and I go to the next hole and realized that I left it behind. And in two situations, I've actually completely lost, couldn't find my clubs.
Wow.
So that is for me is an important value. But also, if you travel with your clubs, imagine that.
Yep.
Now you have access to them. You don't have to take one of our devices and put it in the bag. It actually comes with that built into your club, so you don't have to worry about oh, did I forget to put a tracker in there or not? So
Yep.
that's how it works. Mhm. And of
Very
course,
cool.
let's not forget, you have to take into consideration signal strength and attenuation that the Gulf shaft will inherently do when you embed this into a metal shaft or a carbon shaft, et cetera. So there are a lot of implications, and then also there's waterproofness implications. There's rechargeability questions. How do you do that? And can you hear it? Right? There's a lot of questions that we have to answer, and we're working through that certification process now.
Very cool. So, depending on form factor, do you have to get different certification? Is that kind of how it works? Like in a ski, you have to get one kind of
Hmm.
certification. In golf club, you have to get a
Hmm.
different, et cetera, et cetera. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So, can you
Yeah.
maybe give us some other examples of potential other integrations just to get people thinking that if they are building a physical product, how they could maybe leverage the Pebblebee technology? And you mentioned
Hmm.
bikes. I think that's a perfect example, right? Like how many times have somebody got their bike stolen, for example?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, really, it's unlimited. The potential is
Okay.
unlimited. It's just how much do we want to scale this? And there's a point where it just becomes a no-brainer. Like it needs to have this product. I'll give you an example that I mentioned not too long ago. I was pruning my fruit trees, and I have this nice pruner that, I spent, I don't know, 50, $60 for, and I love it. There's a lot more value to it than the actual cost of replacing it, because, it's got history and I've used it for so long.
Right.
And one day I had it in my pocket and I'm pruning and I'm, climbing the ladder, etc. And I don't know, I couldn't find it. it's somewhere in my yard. I have acreage, so it's somewhere there, and I still can't find it. And imagine if just everything that you use in your life, there is a way for you to connect to. Not maybe not everything, but I think
Lots of stuff, yeah.
the more important, a lot of stuff I should say, is but it becomes part of your life. It becomes just like email today, or texting, or calling. That technology never existed, 100 years ago, but it does today, and it becomes part of your life. And that's where we're heading. I think people are very open to that, and people are very aligned with that technology, and ever since Apple came out with the AirTag, I think people now understand the technology a lot better. The barrier to entry has been removed, and people understand technology. So it's becoming more prevalent, and it's definitely scaling globally. And you'll see rapid growth in that category over the next couple of years.
Sure. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think more and more people, as they put it into like on their keys, their wallet, their luggage as they travel, I think was a big one that made people go out and buy these tracking devices, right? Myself included.
Mhm.
Like I
Mhm.
put them in all my luggage and just partly I want to even know, okay, it made it on the plane. Great,
Mhm.
obviously. But it's like, how close is it to me when I'm retrieving my luggage? Like sometimes you have to
Mhm.
wait,
Mhm.
10, 20, 30 minutes. And, especially if you travel with kids, they're impatient and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, look, let's see where our luggage is. Oh, it's close. Like, it's
Yeah.
almost like a little bit of a game, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
cool that,
Yeah.
we can start tracking some of this stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm curious though, you guys have been at this a long time. You've worked with obviously Apple and Google to meet their standards. Walk us through some of that journey and actually contributing back to that part of the community.
Yeah, it is definitely not for the faint of heart, I'll just say, because we are a relatively smaller company to those bigger companies that you mentioned. But it has been a very positive experience. It's been a very
Okay.
positive, challenging at times for sure. There are ups and downs, but in general, I'm very, very happy to say that it's been a very positive experience with both companies, very respectful. And I believe that uh, recent challenges, for example, the delay of the Google Find My device has been a difficult journey to maneuver through, but it was the right thing to do, right? It was the right thing to do for the ecosystem, for the consumer.
Right.
And so just kind of pausing for a moment, doing the right thing, and re-architecting to make sure that safety is number one, and then features and benefits to the consumer are number two. Is something that was very important, and it's something that is very difficult for smaller, very effective and efficient, nimble companies to do, because they just want to go, right? They just want to go,
Yeah.
go, go, as opposed to wait, hold on a sec, let's pause and think of the bigger picture here and what is more important, and its safety. So I think it's definitely been a challenge, but the team overall has been extremely happy with everything that we've done so far on both sides. As I mentioned, the certification process is a very difficult process, especially when you're talking about now both companies, as well as embedded, as well as
Yeah.
multiple form factors. I mean, it adds a whole bunch more complexity to this. And this isn't it, right? Like first, 2022, we started with Apple. In 2023, we're working with Google. 2024 is going to be more, and there's
Right.
just so much going on that I can see the next 5 to 10 years being exceptionally exciting, and the scaling of this is going to be phenomenal over the next few years. And it's very exciting to be part of this journey, ultimately adding value, to consumers. Adding value is, I think, most important for me, while keeping safety in check.
Totally. No, that makes a lot of sense. So, for people building hardware out there, what
Mm,
advice do you give to them? Because you just touched on something that I think is really important. That in your case, like obviously, safety and security is a big factor. Sometimes with other hardware products, that's a factor. But like, what advice do you give to people actually building hardware? Because you've been doing it for so long with many different form
mhm.
factors.
Yeah, hardware is hard. But I also think that if different people are in different stages of their career and their business and their life, that there are moments where I would give an advice based on that particular stage you're in.
Okay.
For example, I'm in a situation right now where I think a little bit different than how I was maybe a couple years ago or 10 years ago. But I think from my perspective, where I stand today, hardware is very hard, but it's also easy in regards to duplicating, right? The hardware, and you come up with something very innovative, and out of the box thinking, and then someone copies it in the next few months, right? So really, ultimately, hardware is just a vehicle, but the most important is the software that's built into that hardware, the security aspects of that software, the interoperability with regards to different platforms, so iOS, Android, and something else. Um, that and the partnerships and the certification, the partnerships with these companies is very important. But it's also very important aspect of it is marketing and the partnerships that you've established, not just with the technology partners, but also with retailers,
Right.
and the trust and the branding that customers have in your brand. I think it's super important, and it's a journey, and it takes a lot of money, something that we didn't have really early on. I mean, we've raised enough so that we can get to where we are today, but we haven't raised the tens and hundreds of millions, and so it's
Right.
very difficult to really push through that space when it's crowded, while keeping what's very important to you, which is safety, adding value, being friendly to the environment, uh, core values to make sure that they stick around and you don't give those up for profit. And so it's very difficult to continue to persevere through these moments. And listen, entrepreneurship is marked with many, many uncertainties. I mentioned this earlier, but it also has frequent failures on a daily basis, and it's like a never-ending roller coaster. So you just
Yeah.
never know what you're gonna get, and you don't know what to expect in the next drop, right? As you're going through that roller coaster. So it's very exciting. It's also very tiring, and you need to persevere, and you need to kind of get hooked so that that you can go through that journey, especially with hardware, because it is very, very hard. But it's also very rewarding, and it's a tangible product that people can touch and feel and use, and they can see the benefit right away. And so it's very exciting. I have a very big affinity to hardware. Anytime I think I have a good idea or something, it always gravitates towards hardware. I don't know why, but so it is very hard, but you got to persevere. You got to stick through it. So I think that's number one recommendation and feedback I would give is that you got to persevere. You got to keep innovating, and you got to focus on the software that's in that hardware. That's going to be the key differentiation for you.
Sure. So in going with that, so you mentioned how important hardware and software tie in. How do you make sure you're building in some sort of longevity into the hardware and make sure it's being able to update as well as, cover all those things that you outlined from security and,
Mhm.
and staying relevant and making sure, you still stay good with, the Apples and the Googles of the world, because
Mhm.
that's got to be challenging in itself.
Yeah, it's challenging and it's changing every week or month, I would say.
Mhm. Sure.
You got to have penetration testing. Obviously, there's all sorts of different scenarios that you have to cover, but you also have to cover the future updates of a particular
Yeah.
product. So we have an over-the-air update capability. We've also engineered so many aspects of this from a perspective of an iOS user versus an Android user. How do you over-the-air update the device? There's different ecosystems that you have to play with. There's also the onboarding of a
Right.
new customer. How do you experience that onboarding? I would definitely recommend going to Costco, for example, and picking up some of our products, recent products that we started selling there recently. And I think this is a bundle. It's a member price. It's very good value. And I would encourage people to go through that process and how we onboard the customer. how do we engage in the customer to use these products in a way where there's friction, less. There's no friction. And so I think that's important in terms of understanding the user experience, but also making sure that they have the latest. And so as they onboard with that hardware, they are offered an opportunity to update their device if an update exists, right? And if it's
Right.
necessary. And it's always typically necessary if there's a safety measure that's
Sure.
needed there. And that obviously those updates are also available in the future. So yeah, that's essentially what it is. We make sure that we support all hardware for as long as we can, but we also understand that hardware does change and it does improve exponentially, really on a year-to-year basis. And
Yeah.
we try to keep up to date on all the latest.
No, that makes a lot of sense. But we're kind of coming to the end of the show. So how about we close with mentioning where people can actually get the product and any other links you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned Costco. That's the big
That's
one.
very
We're going
cool.
to be in
Congrats on
several
that.
other
That's huge.
retailers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
It's apparently
So
like I've never done it, but you sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah, no,
getting
it's
into
okay.
Costco
Yeah.
is actually like really challenging from what I've heard. Is that fair to say?
It is. It is. It's prestigious, I think, because it is very, very
100%.
challenging. But the best thing about Costco is their number one goal is best member value, right? So
Understood.
that's just like I was saying, our number one most important is safety. Costco's number one. It's not about profit. It's obviously they're a public company and it's very important for them. But I think it just follows, right? So most important is member value. And so when we talk, it's about how can we do the best for our members, and that's why I think it's so important to make sure that we follow that the rule of law. Is the best member value, and then everything trickles after that, right? So yeah, it is very difficult. We love our partnership with Costco, and there's so much more to come there. You'll hear about it in the next year or so. But there's a lot of exciting stuff we're doing. So I guess in terms of several exciting developments as I mentioned and products coming to market in 2024. And I guess to stay updated, you can follow us on in our company news on the usual social media platforms like Instagram and LinkedIn. And you can also connect with me on LinkedIn for any business discussions. Look at me up, Daniel Dauro on LinkedIn. So yeah,
Perfect, Daniel. Well, again, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you and have a good rest of your day, man.
thank you so much, Kevin. I appreciate you again. I really enjoy these discussions with you, Kevin, and looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, me
Thanks
as
for
well,
the
man. All
opportunity.
right. Have a good rest of your day. Okay. Bye.
Thank you.